Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for RWBY Volume 9, Episode 1, Place of Particular Concern. It is crazy that it has been nearly 2 years since I have done a review for RWBY. I got the hat, we got the pillows, Yang is right there, there we go. Thanks to my new setup, it's been nearly 2 effing years, so I was streaming, I think, on my back wall last time I was actually reviewing the show, so now you can always see all the pillows. It's crazy that the show, like, it really, I think, I looked it up, I believe the Volume 8 finale was like March 26th or something like that. We were genuinely super close to it having been 2 full years, and that is insane. But we are back. RWBY is officially back. We got to see the girls. We didn't get to see anybody else outside of Weiss, of course. Well, technically we saw Neo, but you know, we'll get to see more of her later. Probably in a lot of different ways, depending on how they do things. Either she's going to be based on, we'll get to like the opening stuff, and all the theories on that. Like, I know there've been quite a few theories. So we'll talk about the theories more towards the end. But starting from the very beginning, we of course kick things off with RWBY just falling. Like, actually, it starts with the narration of, like, basically this is just the sad season. It was just like, this is about somebody who got some issues right now, and it's just like, okay, cool, that doesn't seem hopeful or happy. And then of course you get that very opening dialogue of the whole volume, coupled with, you know, seeing the actual intro to this volume at the end of the episode. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be a sad one for RWBY. It's gonna be interesting, I think. But we see RWBY falling, you know, she wakes up a little bit, it's like, what are these orbs? Then she just sees a flying punch come in her way from Neo, who's just like, you know, kind of going through the character. So, you know, we technically got some appearances from other people, but things kind of, you know, they have their little sprawl in the air, and then she passes out. She wakes up on the beach, she's got no weapon, and it's just like, all right, well, what's happening here? She goes through some bramble, we'll call it, realizes that she's going through, she continues to go through over and over again. She eventually ends up helping a mouse. The mouse speaks, she freaks out, the mouse freaks out. Excuse me. She helps the mouse get, like, I guess it's like almost like a cheese potato that she just pulls out the ground. And so then she's, you know, teamed up with the mouse that can talk. And that's when we kind of switch over to Blake and Weiss. And that's when things start to get a bit more interesting, because it's like, all right, we have 2 characters that have officially, you know, found each other. They fell at different times, and who knows how locations and dropping, all that good stuff works. But they ended up finding each other. So it's like, all right, we got to find RWBY, we got to find Yang, we got to figure out, you know, what's happening. And of course, that's when it instantly jumps into, so what happened? Because I fell before you fell, so things must have got real crazy. And then it's like, let's keep on going. You know, like, you know, everyone wants to be hopeful, and, you know, Blake is just like, hey, must have been crazy. She was being a bit realistic, but then she was also like, I'm sure everyone else is fine, you know, that came down here. But Weiss can't feel that way because she knows that they already lost someone on the surface, or whatever you want to call it, above. And so she's just kind of like, oh, she's real down. And then she kind of flipped on us, because when they found Blake's weapon, she was super cheerful and jumping and stuff like that. And it was like, I think that this is, it's almost like that dichotomy of being like, she knows the truth is so dark that she's willing to be like out of character and happy, because she's like cheering her on and stuff. And it's just like, if she just said like, you know, something really plain, like, you know, I'm sure you got it or something, it'd be like, yeah, that's Weiss. That's Weiss cheerful. But she was like jumping and animated and freeze framed and everything. So it was interesting to see that. And it's like, I think that's a part of why, because she even made a joke where it was like, oh, good news, I'm running out of dust. And it was like, oh, that's interesting. Like that, those sort of quips aren't exactly what we really get from Weiss. So it was interesting to have that sort of like pseudo cheerful moment out of her character. And it did seem like maybe that's her kind of deflecting a little bit, or doing as much as she can to be like, oh man, you know, I'll cheer you on, or I'll be silly with you, so you don't ask me again what just happened, because I really don't want to talk about it, because I'm already hurting. I don't want you to hurt, but I'm gonna have to tell you the truth. So she's just like, hey, let's just find everybody else, and then we'll talk about what ended up happening. So of course they go through, they find RWBY, same thing happens. Of course, after they get captured by all the mice and stuff, they solve that whole situation by having the mouse that's with RWBY be like, hey, this is what happened, she's cool, they're probably cool too, everything works out, they go on their adventure. The mouse does say something very interesting that I thought was very fitting for like what they seem to be doing as far as the storytelling, where the mouse was like, yeah, I don't have anything to do. And I'm pretty sure the mouse said, I don't have anything to do yet, which means everyone has like kind of basically like a fairy tale moment that they're supposed to enact at some point. It's, you know, their destiny, so to speak. And it's like, oh, the mouse hasn't been given their role within a particular story or whatever. So the mouse was like, yeah, I don't have anything to do yet, as if every character eventually gets destined to be like, this is what you do, this is your role in you know, the fairy tale, wherever they are. That's kind of how it seemed, where it was like, yet. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. That's really interesting. And it also seemed like, unless I'm mistaken, the mouse doesn't have a name. And it was like, I wonder if that's a part of it, because they just go with little. So the mouse has like no name whatsoever, but obviously the characters, all the other mice and stuff have to talk to each other. So it's like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I wonder if that is kind of in line with the same element of like, once you get your storyline that you're supposed to have, or your destiny, however they decide to phrase it, in this universe, or we'll just go universe. We'll just call it an alternate universe for now. Maybe once they get that specific destiny, then they're given a specific name, even if it's not a real name. It could just be like, potentially what happens with Jean, like you could just be like the heroic knight or whatever. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Just, I don't have anything to do yet, I don't have a name, stuff like that. It's like, I wonder if all of that is tied into, you don't have that destiny or even a title until you're in your story or whatever. So I thought that was interesting. They come across what is not a Grim, I believe they call it the Jabberwocker. I love the design, I love the weird sound, I absolutely love the twitching of it. I was like, yes, all of that 100%, I absolutely love it. That also fits into some of the stuff with Jean's theory of him being the knight and things like that. So I thought that was cool. Of course, that's where we end up meeting Yang. Yang obviously has lost one of her arms. Well, the arm that she already lost, she lost it again. It's gone again. So sure, we'll get that back. It'll be cool to see if they give her a new version, but I think they'll just give her the arm that was taken from her, because I believe it's taken from, I don't remember what creature that was, but whatever creature is like in the workshop thing in the opening that was like showing something off, I think that's the dude that stole her arm. So I'm like, okay, like the characters are back together. And then of course, that's when Weiss is like, all right, this is what happened. She starts crying. It's like, things got a little frantic and crazy. Jean tried to do what he could, but Penny had to sacrifice herself. And of course, Ruby's like, oh snap, like again, Penny is gone. And so of course she straight up just passes out entirely. And that was the moment where it was just like that descent for her character is officially introduced, where it's like, she's down for the count. Obviously she wakes up, but it's like her story, which is perfectly encapsulated in the intro of her being with the characters and getting slower and slower as they kind of fade through like the different locales. I love that. That was like my favorite part of the intro, is just like, okay, everything in the intro showed every time it was her. They have the beginning of the intro, which technically we're pretty much at the end of the episode. They're all together. It's like, this is crazy. It's super sad. It's crazy as it sounds, as Blake says. I think it was Blake. It was either Blake or Weiss. I think we're in a fairy tale. I'm pretty sure it was Blake. And so they show like the different lands. We have like the candy forest. They have like the full red forest. It looked cool. It definitely looked cool. And I'm curious what the sort of trajectory and like pace is going to be, because I think it's only 10 episodes for this whole volume. So we got 9 episodes left. We'll see how long they are. That was another thing. I was so mad that they gave us a 17-minute episode. It's been nearly 2 years and they couldn't just like double it up. Like, we're only getting 10 anyway. Like, they couldn't just give us like a 30-minute episode after nearly 2 years. I was a little mad personally. Because I was like, it's been such a long time. They couldn't just be like, hey, special first 2 episodes, something. But it was like, nah, we're gonna end it here. 17 minutes, not even a 20-minute episode, 17 minutes. I was admittedly fairly pissed, but it's glad to have the show back in general. So I was, like I said, I was a little upset about that, and I wasn't exactly like the most hyped in the episode overall. I'm sure most people are. It's great to have the show back, but admittedly, the episode itself, I was not super happy with, because I was just like, I felt like nothing happened. Like, the characters kind of came back together. It's not like they fought the Jabberwocker. They introduced the mice, the characters reconnected, and then Weiss told them what happened, but nothing really happens in the episode. They just get back together by the end and they introduce the mice, and that's about it. And then they realize they're in the fairy tale. And I was like, dang, after 2 years, I was a little disappointed that was the first episode. And they really didn't think like, let's just give them a little extra, because it was basically what we knew from the trailer. Technically less. If you didn't watch the trailer, like, you got less. I mean, you got it, I guess, from the intro, you see more of the characters, but I was like, dang, we got like nothing in that intro. And if it was, honestly, I would have been that way no matter what. But with it being 2 years, I'm really on the fence of being like, dang, they couldn't just give us 2 episodes at once, and just, combine the episodes together or something, because it's been nearly 2 years and they hit us with a 17-minute intro, to the whole volume. And I'm just like, okay, not really anything happened outside of introducing the mice, and one of the villains, based on the intro, is like they introduced one of possibly many villains. Or, we'll see what happens there. But I was just like, all right, not much actually happened in the episode. I'm hyped the show is back as a whole, but the episode didn't really get me hyped for anything. I'd say the intro did more so. But even then, it was just like, okay, we're seeing some of the darker things for sure. Like they have the introduction, they show all the girls in their costume going up to now, and they have everyone except for Ruby, where it's like, here's Ruby happy, here's Ruby sad, and then here's Ruby like way in the background, just not even facing us and just turning away from the world. And it's like, okay, that's really cool. And they definitely play on some imagery. I know there's tons of theories out there. I've tried not to look into them because I don't really like to even have ideas too much going into the seasons for pretty much anything, but especially RWBY, because it's like, actually RWBY might be the perfect show to watch all the theories, because you never know where RWBY's gonna head, admittedly. But some of the like things that I've kind of seen, like you could really guess like super fast, like, okay, Jean is definitely the hero because everything that he's done, like he lost Pyrrha, he had to kill Penny, he has to be the hero of the story. So he's the heroic knight. And then I think Neo is going to end up being like the ultimate villain. And so either she's going to recruit other villains, or she's just going to take on all those silhouettes. It's just going to be her as different people around the world. I don't see that working though. I feel like those have to actually be characters because she doesn't speak. So unless they really switch that up, it wouldn't make sense. I mean, they could do like an extra bit of magic, so they could have technically other actors come into the fold. And when Neo reverts back to herself, she can't speak. That could be an increase in her power. I'd never thought of that, but they could do that introduction where if she changes, she can like physically change her body. But once she goes back to herself, there's no way for her to speak individually, but she could have someone else's voice, or she could create a new voice. So they could do that. I hadn't thought of that before, but that could totally work. And that would actually be an amazing way to do that sort of twist. So I think it'll be really evident, like if we never see her with any of the other people, like she's sitting at the table as if she's the leader. So if we don't see her with any of the other people, it'll be like, all right, obviously then that's just her transitioning. And that would definitely mean that it's an increase in her abilities. But I feel like all those characters are going to be actual characters. That's just me personally. But obviously, it's one of many theories within the season. So we'll end up seeing what happens there. But they do a lot of the silhouettes in this. So I'm very curious if they're going to do like, it threw me back to like old school Naruto. I think it was like Naruto, like season 3 when they were like going to get Tsunade. They had like 3 different intros for that season because every time they revealed a new person, they would like wipe the silhouette and just show who the character was. And they would like change stuff throughout the season in the intro. So I feel like that's where we're headed. I thought it was weird that they did that with the girl that's leading the rest of Team RWBY, because they literally show her full on at the very end of it when she wakes up on the beach. And I was like, that's weird. Like they knew they did that. Why did they bother like blurring her out? And then we'd get like a full on front face shot of her when it fades from Neo holding the umbrella to her like waking up on the beach, which I assume that she's one of 2 falling stars, we'll just call it that, in the intro, because they have like the big explosion and then it comes up, it says RWBY Volume 9, and then there's like just 2 little things that are just off in the background falling to the side. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. That's just 2 things by themselves, just as a little duo. So she might be one of them. It's totally possible that other people, that were on the platforms did fall off. She could be one of them and just ends up being, a new main character simply because of that. Or she could actually have been there. I would assume based on them showing her wake up on the beach, that's how everyone wakes up when they fall. So I assume she's, from the platforms above. But it was very interesting because they showed 2 and she would be 1. I don't think, RWBY's giant gun scythe was the second falling star basically in that intro. So I'm like, I know that that's what they showed in the intro there, but I'm like, I assume that that's not really going to end up being the case. But I'm very curious how that's going to play out. Obviously the stuff with Neo, is she actually going to be a leader? Is she just going to be transitioning into these characters? If they speak, like I said, that's a cool introduction to the fact that her abilities have advanced and they could still do it where, she specifically can't talk, but if she transforms into someone else's body or creates a new body, if she just makes up an image in her head, she can like completely recontextualize her entire structure, like actually. So we'll see what happens there. That should be interesting. I'm definitely excited for that. The biggest question for me now is, do we ever see the surface? That is my biggest question. I would love to know what you guys think about that, because I'm like, they have all the Team RWBY. I think I mentioned that in my finale review. I was like, I kind of wish like 1 or 2, like, or half the team made it through the doors, because then they would have to show us what was going on with them as they deal with Team RWBY having fallen below, or, the other parts of Team RWBY falling below. But with all 4 of them falling, it's like, we're probably just going to be here the whole time. And I'm hoping this is a one and done, because I hate when seasons do it where it's like there is so much happening where we have still, Salem, Cinder on the surface, the rest of the other villains who didn't get killed off, which I think is like maybe 1 or 2 other people at this point. They killed off a lot of people, a lot of the villains in the last volume. But I want to see what's going on the surface. Like the characters are just like in a state of panic right now. I want to see that. I feel like we won't in this volume because I feel like they won't escape until the very end, but I would love to be wrong. If we got like the last 2 episodes or something, like they escape in episode 8 and then the last 2 is just like, hey, we're back on the surface. Here's what's happened. Like maybe time is different. You know, it could be like maybe a couple of days, couple of weeks have passed. Who knows? But I would love to see how that ends up playing out. Or maybe they could just do it real time, however many days pass for them, you know, passed in real time. But I would love to see the surface. I just feel like they're not going to do that. So we probably won't see anything on the surface until either the end of the volume or whenever they decide like, all right, we spent enough time here. Now let's head back to the surface. So we'll see what happens with that. Jean is totally the dude in the suit of armor because he has to be the hero. He's lost too many people. That's 100% him. I think that's like the definitive thing. And if it's not, that's going to be a great twist because I think everyone's just like, it has to be. That 100% has to be him. That has to be him. And then at the end, when he's the hero, we'll finally see his semblance because it's been 18 years is what it feels like. So they have to do it. They are legally obligated now. I'm tired of waiting. I got to see it. It's driving me nuts. What is his semblance? What is his actual semblance? It's driving me crazy. But excited for the season. Would love to know your thoughts on the first episode. Would love to know all your theories, hopes, dreams. Will we see the surface? Will we not see the surface? We have like the little, I think he was like half puppet, half robot dude, like the kid who seems to be taking the place of like the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland. Obviously, we do have the cat who is Cheshire. We'll see what else ends up happening. What other fairy tales they really pull from exactly, not so exact. There's a million options. They've already done it because that's like all of RWBY is fairy tales and this and that. So it'll be interesting now that they're in the fairy tales 100%. How hardcore do they really go? Because they've already been, you know, subtle in some ways, less subtle in other ways. So we've definitely seen a mixture of things obvious and not so obvious. So now that they're straight up in the fairy tale realm, how hard are they going to go with this? So I'm looking forward to it. Very excited to see what they do with all the characters going through this season. But of course, RWBY going through like her super depression stage should be very interesting, and seeing, does she choose to become one of the, you know, characters within the fairy tale? And what does that mean for characters? I could obviously, you know, it's RWBY, could be looking into nothing, but in the intro, Jean is standing and then they switch the silhouette. He's in black and then there's just some clocks. Maybe he's trapped in time. Once you're as the thing, you have to do something very specific or you are just that forever. Seems logical to me because anything can happen. So I'm just making crap up and it could be true. Who knows? But I'm excited to see how they handle this and what the rules are. Because let's face it, Jean has accepted it unless we're totally wrong. And RWBY is going to be the one that kind of goes through piece by piece, and maybe part of her is that girl. Like they were playing around with it where like she turns around and it turns into RWBY like on that bridge and stuff. So it's like something obviously is going on there. So who knows what it is, but I'm definitely excited for kind of the mystery of this season to really unfold for us. But we'll love to know your thoughts on this. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about the premiere, your least favorite parts about it. Also, shameless plug, I do stream right now. Check out my streaming channel. I have links in the description below. All social media is Invisiblekatana, as the little thing said at the beginning of this review, but would appreciate it if you guys check that out. I do high quality uploads on this channel, so if you don't want to check out the streams and you just want to wait for like the video versions, I always put them up later anyway, and at this point they're better quality. I figured all that stuff out, so they're the same quality at this point. If you watch on YouTube, it's 100% higher quality. I don't know what the deal is with YouTube and streaming. It looks ugly compared to Twitch. Just saying. I stream on both. I stream at the same time I do restream, so YouTube or Twitch, you can check both out. Invisiblekatana on Twitch, Invisible High on here on YouTube. But links for both in the description below if you guys want to check that out. But like I said, for now, just want to know your thoughts on this premiere. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.